Cisco, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of you for being here today. Thank you for the Reno community for having me. I love being up here every time I come up here, and now that I get to spend even more time, it's super exciting, so thank you.
Thank you. So Cisco, you were raised in a working-class Latino family in Arizona and somehow ended up graduating from the #1 high school in the country, earned an MBA and a law degree, and ultimately served as General Counsel for Agassi and Steffi Graf for 14 years before becoming Nevada's newest Secretary of State. You credit some key pivotal moments for leading you to where you are today. Please walk us through a few of those key moments and what you learned from them.
Sure. Look, I like to say I'm one of the luckiest people in the world to have the opportunities that I have. I like to say my life is a bit like Forrest Gump. Sometimes things just happen. You're like, what is going on? This is pretty incredible. I guess I'll just go with it. But in reality, it's my parents. My parents weren't well educated. My mom didn't finish high school because she got pregnant with my older brother. But they knew that education was so critical to the success of my future. And they were engaged in education, but they weren't because they didn't know how. The only time they engaged is when they thought I was in trouble, or teachers would call and say, we'd like to speak with you. And I'd immediately get home and they'd be like, why are the teachers calling? What did you do? Why do we have to go there? And most of the time it was just my teachers. I was lucky to have the educators that I have. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about education, because it is a game changer. It is a life changer. And through that process, having the opportunity to meet certain individuals at certain points of my life, and one of those points was having the opportunity to meet Jim Rogers and Beverly Rogers, who happen to own Channel 4 here and who are super philanthropic in the Nevada community. They offered me a job my first day of law school, and ever since then, Nevada has been home. This place is incredible. There is no other state in the country that exists like Nevada. If you have a dream, you have a passion, and you have a purpose, anything is accomplishable. And so I like to say thank you to Nevada. And with Jim Rogers led me to the opportunity with Andre Agassi. The opportunity with Andre Agassi led to my opportunity on the Nevada Athletic Commission, where I had the opportunity to serve as chair for 2 years, which was not an easy job. Everybody thinks it's fun, it's incredible, it's great. You get to go to every UFC fight, every boxing match. But I sat there in complete fear every time because of one, I was worried about the health and safety of the fighters. But also two, there's significant investment made on those matches. And given the gaming community, it was my job to protect the integrity of that process and that system.
Thank you. So speaking of opportunities, you used the term pay community rent. You said that you believe everyone needs to pay community rent. Someone before you paid community rent and it helped you, and now you have committed your life and career to paying community rent to help those coming after you. Please tell us what this means to you and how you're doing it.
It started with Jim Rogers. The reason I had the opportunity to meet him was he pledged $130 million to my law school in Tucson. And it was a complete accident experience. He was at a reception. I was just elected student body president, walked into the reception, didn't know a single person there. And Jim was interesting. He was very shy in controlled environments he didn't control. And we just started chatting, and they said, Jim, please come up to the front. And I thought, oh my God, that's the guy that just gave all the money to law school. I just ruined the entire deal. What am I going to do? This is crazy. And ever since I became friends, but I started to learn from him that you have to have a purpose and a passion and remember why you are where you are. And that was his commitment to philanthropy. He said he was the luckiest person to get what he got, and he needed to give every single dollar away because everybody deserves the same opportunity. And working for Andre, had 2 dual careers. His first career, he was incredible, but then he had a crash. And he quickly realized he needed to have purpose to do what he did. And he found that purpose in establishing his school in Las Vegas, seeing the kids, knowing that every time he walked on the court, his purpose was to fight for those kids who didn't have a voice. And he would sit with me. We'd spend hours on the airplane just talking. And he'd say, you have to have a purpose. What are you going to do to return what people have given to you? And how are you going to do it? And it's not a question you can answer immediately. It's something you have to develop over time. And I felt, look, I wouldn't be here sitting across from him on an airplane if it wasn't for the education I had. And other kids like me who are Latinos parents who are working hard, trying to provide for the family, fighting every day to survive. I have to do something to give back to that community because they gave me everything they had to do what I did. So,
thank you. You successfully raised $50 million to build an innovative workforce development school in North Las Vegas. But it's not just any school. This school's approach to education is a distinct departure from most traditional curriculum. Please tell us about that and what kind of results you're achieving there.
Absolutely. There was a Catholic high school in Tucson, and one of the stories of my parents being called to school was my 8th grade year when my teachers were fearful of me going to our neighborhood high school. I didn't go to the greatest schools. Our neighborhoods were tough. And they called my parents in and said, he cannot go to the school down the street. You got to find alternatives for him. And I was like, well, I'm not going to go to the school they want me to go to, which is called University High. I was like, that's where all the nerds go. I'm not going there. There was a Catholic school, I was a good altar boy. I was trying to be, I called the school and I said, I'd like to come there. And they're like, okay, this is tuition. I was like, yeah, but I don't have any money. And they're like, thanks for calling, bye. And I was like, that's not very Catholic-like. We have to figure this out. So it kind of made me a little upset and, went to the nerdy high school. Shocking experience just from going from a typical black and brown school to a school that is completely not black and brown, but parents who are lawyers, doctors, engineers, nothing my parents or family were. And I was like, what is going on here? Then got into law school and they started to build what the Cristo Rey Model School in Tucson. And I just started to follow. It's a Catholic school. It started in Chicago, but it has a very unique model. They set up an employment agency and they set up the school. The kids go to school 4 days a week and they work 1 day a week in a professional office environment. And they get experiences that are unbelievable. Our students now in Las Vegas are working in the MGM executive office. They show up their first day of high school, 14 years old, coming from junior high. First day of school, they get in a van, drop them off the front door of the business, say, have a good day. We'll be back at 5 o'clock to pick you up to bring you back to school. Imagine being 14 years old, working with executives, working in a law firm, working in a general contractor. We have a couple of students working for a federal judge in Las Vegas, which is something I've never experienced as a lawyer, but seeing them grow in that experience and change their perspective on why education matters. They're seeing why people drive a nice car, why they dress nice, where they get into leadership position, making massive decisions, and those individuals turn into mentors every day those students are at work. So it's incredible. We have our first graduating class this year. Super excited, and it's a beautiful thing.
And they're exposed to things that they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to.
Exactly. And, to raise money for that mission and that purpose, given where our education system in Nevada, it's easy to do when you tell somebody what the results are. Our students are 3 times likelier to graduate from college than their peer subgroup.
Amazing. So something really cool happened with one of your students that led you to deciding to run for Nevada Secretary of State. Will you please share that story with us?
Absolutely. The work program is, so Cristo Rey St. Vita is across the street, what's called Broad Acres. Broad Acres is a marketplace in North Las Vegas. It's basically a swap meet. It's majority Latino families. And you go there and you just see people working hard every day to build that, to earn revenue to support their families. Some are operating off a cash basis because they don't comply with the Secretary of State's office because it's too complicated and it's too hard. Well, one of our students' family had a stand at the marketplace. She went to work at a bank, spent the 6 months at that point working at the bank, learning about banking, understanding capital. She convinced her family and taught her family why banking was important. But they couldn't open that bank account until they established and filed with the Secretary of State's office. The banking staff helped that family comply with the Secretary of State's office. And they opened a bank account. Their daughter helped them understand that, taught them what it meant to, balancing a checkbook, but also taught them about capital and lending and loans. And they applied for a loan. They were expanding their business. And one day we had an open house at the school and we just started chatting and I asked them how things were going and tears just started up in their eyes. And I was just like, oh no, what's happening? I'm not good when emotion happens. And they said, without this school, our family would have not changed our dynamics. This school has changed not only our daughter's experience, but it's changed our family's outcome. And they're telling this story, tears just show up in my eyes because this is the most beautiful thing that a school can do. Not only is it providing a great education, it's providing a student an opportunity that they didn't know existed, but it's changing the family dynamics both from a personal and a financial perspective. And that's exactly why at that moment I thought, the Secretary of State's office has such a critical role in our small business community. And some of the greatest rate of small business is amongst our Latino community. And it's my responsibility to get in there and fight to make that process better, easier, and more simple for everybody to have the opportunity to start a business. And so from that moment on, I was like, let's go do this.
Cisco, we are so honored that you took the time out of your busy schedule to spend with us today, to share your wisdom with us. As you know, TEDx is all about ideas worth spreading. What is the idea that you would like to leave with us today?
Well, I don't know if I have great wisdom. I think I'm a hard worker and I'll do anything that somebody tells me to do if there's a great benefit. I think it's One, making sure you understand your purpose and believing in that purpose, because when you believe in it, you can share it with heart and passion that people are going to buy into it. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have the folks in my life. I also wouldn't have that school if the donors didn't buy into my vision. So selling that vision, being passionate about it, and being truthful is really important. And remembering we all have a responsibility to pay our community rent because our community gives us everything we have. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ready?
Thank you all. Have a good day.